Hey guys, it's Miss Tremlett. I'm really excited to talk to you today about reading. We've been reading lots of different types of stories, both nonfiction and fiction stories. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how you can figure out the reason why the author wrote the story you're reading. So our objective today is to be able to identify and explain why the author wrote the story you're reading. Now, when you're trying to figure out the reasons why your author wrote your story, I want you to think about pie. Not pie like a dessert that we would eat, but P-I-E. The P stands for persuade, the I stands for inform, and the E stands for entertain. When an author is trying to persuade you about something, they wrote a book to persuade you about a topic, that means that the author is trying to convince the reader of a certain point of view. That means the reason why the author wrote that story was to persuade you. If an author wrote a story to inform you about a topic, that means that the author is trying to teach or give information to the reader about a topic. That means the author wrote that story to inform you about something. If the author wrote the story because they're trying to entertain you, that means that the author is trying to get your attention as the reader through enjoyment. A lot of made-up stories or funny stories are written to entertain readers, and that's the reason why authors wrote that story. I'm going to go over some of the read-alouds that we've done while we've been remote learning at home, and we're going to decide what reason, what purpose the author wrote these stories. We've read The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein together, The Trouble with Grown-Ups by Stan and Jan Berenstain, and Who Was Harriet Tubman? These are 3 books we've read while at home. Now, The Giving Tree is a story that's all about learning a lesson to be grateful for the things that you have. The tree teaches the boy how to be more grateful for things that he already has instead of always wanting more. Shel Silverstein, the author of this book, wrote The Giving Tree to persuade you to be more grateful for the things in your life. So the author's purpose of The Giving Tree is to persuade. Now, The Trouble with Grown-Ups. This is a made-up story. When I was reading it, I was giggling and laughing a lot because the bear cubs dress up like the parents and kind of showed them that they were acting a little silly. So the author's purpose, the reason why Stan and Jan Berenstain wrote this book, was to entertain us as the readers. It's really funny. I found myself laughing a lot. I really enjoyed reading this book, and I was really entertained while reading it. So the reason why they wrote this book was to entertain their readers. Let's look at our nonfiction text from these past weeks. Who Was Harriet Tubman? Who Was Harriet Tubman is full of true information, true facts about the amazing life of Harriet Tubman. The reason why the author wrote this book is to inform the reader, to give information about a topic. So I'm going to start filling out my sentence frames that are on our slides for the week. I believe the author wrote Who Was Harriet Tubman to inform the reader. So I'm going to write, I believe the author wrote Who Was Harriet Tubman to inform the reader. So I'm thinking, when I think of pie, P-I-E, persuade, inform, entertain, I'm thinking of those 3 choices. The reason why my author, my nonfiction author, wrote Who Was Harriet Tubman was to inform us as readers, because there's so many facts and information in this book. Sometimes you might find that a book is really persuasive and informative. Sometimes you might find that a book is really entertaining, but also persuades you to do something else. There can be two reasons why an author wrote the story. For my book, Who Was Harriet Tubman, it's more to inform the reader. It's full of interesting facts, but it's full of a lot of information about the life of Harriet Tubman. So I'm thinking the main purpose why the author wrote this book was to inform the reader. One reason I think this is, now I've mentioned a lot of times that this has true facts and information about Harriet Tubman. So I'm going to write one reason I think this is: the book has many true facts about Harriet Tubman. Now, in second grade, we practice about giving examples to prove that our answers are correct. So I have stated that the author's purpose, the reason why the author wrote Who Was Harriet Tubman, was to inform the reader. I explained why I think that. I gave a reason why I think the purpose was to inform readers, because it has many true facts. Now I need to give an example of a true fact from the book, because that's going to prove that my explanation is correct. So, for example, the book says, and in my Harriet Tubman book on page 58, it says Harriet went back to Maryland in 1851. She led one of her brothers and two other men to freedom. That's an example of some true facts about Harriet Tubman. So I'm going to write, for example, the book says Harriet went back to Maryland in 1851. She led one of her brothers and two other men to freedom. And I'm just going to put in parentheses page 58, because I'm showing that those words are coming from the book on page 58. And here we go. Now we know how to figure out why an author writes a book. What is the author's purpose for writing that story? Always remember PIE: persuade, inform, entertain. Which is the reason why the author wrote your story? I believe the author wrote Who Was Harriet Tubman to inform the reader. One reason I think this is the book has many true facts about Harriet Tubman. For example, the book says Harriet went back to Maryland in 1851. She led one of her brothers and two other men to freedom, and I found that on page 58. Always support your reasons with an example, and always give a reason why you think the author wrote that story. Just remember, always think PIE when you're trying to explain the reason why an author wrote your story. I can't wait to see what you guys figure out with the reasoning or the author's purpose of why they wrote their story. I hope you guys remember PIE, P-I-E, persuade, inform, entertain. Talk to you soon, friends.